Hello and welcome back to Jackknives Reviews. I'm of course your host, Jackknife. And welcome to my final review of the year. So today I wanted to talk about a new movie that just recently came out, and I honestly feel that it could be potentially a holiday classic years down the road. So let's talk about The Holdovers.
The Holdovers.
During the holiday break in 1970 in a private school near Boston, curmudgeonly history teacher Paul Hunman is forced to look after the holdover students who are unable to be with their families during the holiday break. Throughout the course of the holiday break, all but one student named Angus, who is the most rambunctious of all of them, is forced to stay at the school. These two social outcasts, as well as the head cook Mary, who recently lost her only son to the Vietnam War, are forced to stay together and try to make it through the holiday season. When I first saw bits of this movie, it was weirdly enough on Instagram. And after I went and saw it with my mother, I was really surprised with how much I loved it. We just talked about the movie for like hours and what different things meant in the time of watching it. It dealt with really heavy subjects, but it didn't do it in a forceful way. It did it in a way that was, yes, you can be in the holidays. Yes, you can try to celebrate. But what if those overwhelming things in the real world are creeping in so frequently, it's almost like you're gasping for air? That's where this movie resides. It's made by the same people who made Sideways, and it shows. Sideways dealt with a struggling writer. And funny enough, technically Paul Giamatti's character is kind of still a struggling writer. But what's most interesting about the movie is it feels like an actual play, in the sense that the story structure, the pacing, the feel, the vibe, the uncomfortable yet comfort in the fact that you are all trapped together. It's the concept of misery loves company manifest, but set around the holidays. You have three essential characters. One who's isolated himself from the world due to his own actions and due to his own selfishness. You have another person who's just trying to get through the holidays after an overwhelming amount of grief and despair that is immeasurable for anyone to deal with. But you just try to grin and bear it through the holidays, even though everything reminds you of those same horrible things. And then you have another character who just seems like a rabble-rouser, a person who just wants to get under your skin, and mainly due to the fact that he doesn't really ever get any of the attention that he so desperately wants and needs. The principal foundations of what we as a society put on expectations of ourselves and expectations from our loved ones or to our loved ones. It feels like a movie that I would put in the same vein as, say, Dead Poets Society. Art house meets normal filmmaking, just independent, pure filmmaking. And that's what this felt like. It felt like if an indie director made a holiday movie, but not in a way that's like trying to be too artsy-fartsy, more trying to be real. I think that's one of the best things about it, is that every holiday movie I've ever seen, from A to Z, every holiday movie has to have this sense of wonder and whimsy and magic spirit around it. There's none of that in this movie. There's nothing in the movie that isn't, in a sense, grounded in reality. It doesn't hold anything back. It also plays its cards close to chest. I don't really know how much I can really talk about it because it's a movie that I really feel that everyone should just experience. It's a movie that it's very adult, and the more mature your mindset is, the more mature and understanding you'll have about it. Dominic Sessa plays the young kid at this private school named Angus. He's an ass, but he's not an ass to the point where you don't want to follow him. He's a person that would be difficult to be around for anyone, because he clearly doesn't want to be around anyone, but he's kind of obligated to. And I feel like all three of them are like that in a sense. Divine J. Randolph plays the lady who takes care of the people at the school that they're going to. She's more of a lunch lady, but like a glorified lunch lady. She makes all their meals. She's basically living on the campus. She's kind of forced to live on the campus due to her circumstances that I won't get into. She's just sick of everyone, but she's simultaneously no nonsense and yet isn't against a little bit. She's a woman who's been through so much, and yet she doesn't want pity, because everyone gives her pity, but she does want love. It's a lot of weird parallel dynamics in this movie like that. But the one who absolutely steals the show is Paul Giamatti. I mean, I make no qualms. Paul Giamatti is legitimately one of my favorite actors. I've never really seen a bad performance from the man. Through his catalog, that's saying a lot. I was also astounded because I kept forgetting the eye thing in the movie. One eye was bug-eyed, and I kept forgetting if that was actually him or the prosthesis, and I really forgot. I legitimately forgot if that was actually him or if it was a contact lens throughout the whole movie. I'm like, is that really him or is that the contact lens? I really legitimately couldn't tell, because that's how good he is in this role. When it comes to playing villains, Paul Giamatti is the best at playing the most real villains. You have character actors who are known for primarily playing villains, but they're generally in some capacity over the top. With the exception of Amazing Spider-Man, Paul Giamatti has never really played a character that's super over the top. He's usually a character, when they're a villain, that is a person that you could see in the real world, that you could see as a person who's like, oh, he really is terrible, but maybe there's something more. He's an interesting character. He's not quite a Scrooge, and he's not quite inhumane. He's more hermit-like. It's really hard to talk about this movie without giving any major details, but I will say the visuals are fantastic. The entire movie, I believe, was shot in 70mm, but the grimy look to it adds to it. Like, it feels like it just came right out of a 70s movie. And I love it for that, because it feels vintage, but it's not vintage. That's a thing that a lot of filmmakers would be too afraid to do, but this one doesn't. I was so enthralled in the movie. If this isn't up for some sort of award or at least talked about, I don't know what the hell we're doing when it comes to making independent film. It's a movie that I feel, if it's not talked about, should be. If it's not seen, should be. And if you haven't seen it, do. Either rent it, buy it, see it in theaters, some way. It's well worth your time if you give it a chance. I give The Holdovers 5 out of 5. Well, that's it for Jackknives Reviews for this year. But don't worry, we're going to have a lot of things planned for next year. And in the meantime, why don't you let me know what your favorite underappreciated holiday movie is? Maybe I might check them out during the holiday break. Have a good one, and I'll see you next year.